David Roches joins us live now from Bathsheba, Maryland. He's a professor at the National Defense University. Welcome. Great to see you, David. Just put into context how important this bill that has passed now in the House is. We know that there's been a lot of delay and debate for months, but finally this first hurdle has been passed. We know it has to go to the Senate next and then to President Biden to sign.
Yeah, well, the Senate won't be much of a hurdle. They passed an earlier bill, as you noted, and so the skids are greased. So I expect this to clear the Senate and be law within probably about 3 days. The main impact for Ukraine is that what this will allow is the U.S. to transfer more stocks from U.S. war stocks immediately to Ukraine. And then I think the way it will work is that this will replenish American stocks. So prior to that, the armed forces were hesitant to transfer particularly missiles and artillery rounds because they thought that they might be left with a shortfall. But I think what we'll see is now that this production is starting, the new stuff will actually go to American sources and existing American sources will go to Ukraine. The importance of this is that the Ukrainians are at about a 10-to-1 disadvantage with conventional artillery shells and a lesser advantage with other munitions vis-a-vis the Russians. And they're actually at the risk of losing ground just because of a lack of munitions.
And that point there of a risk of losing ground, how quickly does this material, does this aid get to the ground, get to the people that need it?
That's a good question. That's why I think what we're going to see are transfer from U.S. sources. That can go as quick as we can shift it. So it could be there within a matter of weeks. If you wait for new production, that will take months, if not years. One of the good aspects about this is that it guarantees a steady stream of production for defense industries that will allow them to expand their production lines. If you just go with normal procurement, no business is going to add like a second shift just for 6 months worth of business. They're not going to build an annex to the factory. So I think if they choose to do this the way that I'm hearing they're going to, you could do it as fast as you can shift them from U.S. stockpiles. Some of the missiles take longer to build. They just aren't there. And so that may take a little bit longer, but this is a huge moral victory, a moral boost for the Ukrainian forces, and that will have an immediate effect.
So Russia will be looking at this, and we've already seen a reaction coming from the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, Zakharova. She said US aid to Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan will deepen crises throughout the world. But in terms of the stock that Russia has, when it sees, as you said, this is a moral victory for them, will they go and replenish? Will Russia go and get more? I know I'm really simplifying this, but how would Russia react to this?
Well, usually any indication of Western support for Ukraine, Russia usually goes first to saying that, this might lead to nuclear war. Their strategy is to deter the West, and the ace that they have in their hand to do that is the threat of nuclear war. But they've pretty much tapped out every available source for munitions. They're already firing a lot of North Korean munitions. They found those to be of somewhat inferior quality. There are indications that they're receiving at least tactical vehicles from China. I don't think China will provide them with munitions in the short term. And more to the point, everything Russia gets, they have to pay for. And I don't think they have the ability to do that. So their domestic expansion, domestic production is limited by a lack of manpower and a lack of access to Western machine tools. So I think they're already going all out. I don't think they have a whole lot that they can do to counter this. So this will set up a more equal battle between the Ukrainians and the Russians. I don't think the Russians have a ready response.
So this will set up a more equal battle between the Russians and the Ukrainians. Can it turn the tide of the war in Ukraine's favor?
Well, I wouldn't say it will turn the tide, but I will say that you cannot turn the tide without doing this. So the Ukrainian deficit in particularly artillery shells is about 10-to-1 compared with the Russians. So the Russians fire 10 artillery rounds for every one that the Ukrainians can fire. Almost impossible to advance under those circumstances, particularly against fortified positions. So right now the Russians are doing this slow sort of meat grinding advance in several cities. where they're taking incredible casualties and advancing very slowly. With increased artillery rounds, the Ukrainians will be able to blunt that and then eventually shift to the offensive. But where and how they do that, that's another matter. David,
fantastic to speak to you. As always, thank you so much for your insights, analysis and time. David Roches speaking to us there from Maryland. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.